morning, everyone. This is Rita Bennett, VP Corporate Communications with Great Bear Resources. It's Monday, March 29th. We are just wanting to provide an overview of our news release that we released this morning. And Great Bear trades on the TSXV under GBR and on the OTCQX under GTBAF. So right now, what we want to talk about is the news we put out today. Some great news from the LP fault, and talks a little bit about some deeper drilling, and for lack of a better term, I'm going to let Chris Taylor, our CEO, dig a little deeper.
Thanks, Rita. Thanks for the introduction. Yeah, so we put out some news that we're very excited about this morning. And these are the deepest drill holes that we've put to date into the LP fault. And they effectively show that it goes at least twice as deep as we had drilled it before. So the headline numbers from today were about, I think, 15.5 grams over just over 3 meters at 942 meters depth downhole. So I think vertically that comes in just slightly under 800 meters vertically from surface. And just to emphasize, we believe that this is going to be, according to the 270 holes that we've now completed into the LP fault across more than 4 kilometers, we think that this is going to be one continuous mineralized gold zone. So very, very exciting to see the project and the zone get to this size.
That's great. So if you could actually just kind of run through some highlights of the news release, then I think a lot of people would like to see, how we usually kind of walk through, and then you can just kind of write it up for everybody and explain it in a little bit more in detail.
Okay, Rita, I'm going to share my screen then.
Great.
That's probably the best way. And I put together a few slides as my usual way so that I could walk through a few things here. So just get all this stuff out of the way. So basically, I took the template from the corporate presentation here, and I just added some of the recent stuff to it. And I am going to make some forward-looking statements. So just keep that in mind. So one of the questions I get asked very, very frequently when we go over these long section based news releases is, how come when you're looking at the long section on screen in front of you, you have pink dots, which are the high grade, more than 20 gram samples? And why is it always with the blue dots and the goldish dots there, which are the lower grade stuff, anywhere between under a gram to, I think, up to about 5 grams in those ranges. So I'll just explain that very briefly before I get into the long section. So this is what the long section looks like. You can see it laid out on the screen in front of you, and it's more than 4 kilometers long. So absolutely a huge zone, comparable to some of the biggest zones in the country. And this is a cross section, and this is a cross section from today's news release that we put out. And as you can see, when you look at it, you have a zone that's roughly, if you look at the squares here, each square is 300 meters wide. So you probably have a zone here that's roughly 150 to 200 meters wide approximately. And when you see that, you see effectively lower grade material, higher grade material, and lower grade material around that. And this really deep stuff that we just hit here, there you go. The highest grade individual sample was over 2 ounces, 73 grams per ton over about 0.6 meters. That was within about half an ounce over 3 meters. And that was within the typical wide LP kind of zone of 70 meters of about a gram at that depth. Of course, these depths were mostly interested in the high grade component. But just to show you how we construct that long section and why the dots are distributed with the pinks near the top, this is what we do. We take a line and we cut. We end up cutting down the axis of the zone. So that's what I've shown here in the black dashed line. So really you're only looking at half the zone when you look at the long section. So you're looking at the high grade panels, which run down in the middle, and the lower grade material around them. So to use the dot color coding that we use in the long sections, you can see the blue dots are the lower grade material. The yellow dots are kind of intermediate. The red is higher grade, 5 to 20 grams, and the purple is more than 20 grams. People in the industry would usually refer to that as ultra high grade mineralization. But if you look along, as each drill hole goes through, and remember, we're not including the results from here in the long section. So as each drill hole goes through, it comes through, it hits the high grade in the middle of the zone, some higher to mid grade material, and then the low grade material on the other side. And it does that again and again. But, if your eyeball is here and you're looking at this thing from 90 degrees, what you're going to see when you look at it is what you see here. So follow that high grade along, and you're looking at, there's the 20 gram plus dots, When you follow it along here, you see if I'm looking at the section in this location, I'm going to see mostly red dots and some purple. That's what I'd be seeing in like that location. If I'm looking at the section here, I'm going to be seeing a mix of the yellow dots and the blue dots. That's what I'm seeing there. And if I look down on this part of the section, I'm looking at just basically blue dots with the odd other colored dot. And that's what you have looking at the section. So when you see it at the top, you see mostly pink dots, just like here. Then you see some red and pink mix down in here, the yellowish and the mostly bluish. And that's why whenever I look at this long section, it's actually because the zone is hundreds of meters wide typically, and you're looking at a cut through it. So here we are looking through that cut through the zone. I'm going to see high grade. I'm going to see that medium grade. I'm going to see low grade looking at this section. And that's what I've illustrated here. So keep in mind when you see it on the section, just because you don't see a pink dot down here doesn't mean it's not going to be there. It just means we haven't drilled within the zone at that depth yet. So I hope that sort of explains that concept. So here we are with the zone showing all of that lower grade material that's away from the center, the high grade center of the zone. And you can see we saw that previously down to almost 800 or 900 meters depth, because these are the deep drill holes that went through the system and hit that stuff way over there. Today's news release is the first drill hole that goes and cuts the section at 790 meters depth, or 790 to 800 meters depth right there. So now we finally see here a pink dot down below the zone, mainly because it's the first deep hole that's actually tested in that area. And amazingly, from our point of view, the first attempt was extremely successful, and we did two more, and we hit the zone again in those two holes. And 2 out of those 3 holes, the grades and the widths of mineralization were better than what you see in the holes above them. So the system was actually getting wider and higher grade as it went down to depth, which is pretty incredible.
That's fantastic. Okay, that actually really helps clear it up. Okay.
Yep, no problem. So this is what we saw in that deepest drill hole. And here you go, looking at a section of the drill core. So that's over 2 ounces per ton gold, and that's just over under a meter. So I guess it was within about a half an ounce over 3 meter zone, or within, I think the full zone here is about 70 meters of about a gram. And there you are sitting down here, having drilled it down almost at 800 meters vertical depth. And right where you'd expect it to be in the middle of the gold mineralized zone, you see the high grade, and then you see the wider low grade around that. But here's the example, like near surface, we used to call this area the gap area. It was a bit of a joke internally because it was just a gap in the drilling early on. Then when we saw the results come in from the first dozen or so holes across this 500 meter segment, we noticed there wasn't a lot of high grade compared to other parts of the LP fault zone in the near surface. So you might get 30, 40, 50 meters of half a gram or just under half a gram, 30 meters of 2/3 of a gram, that kind of stuff, a little bit of high grade in the middle. But you notice here, the drill hole is substantially better at depth than it is up above. And what's really interesting is the mineralization is exactly the same. You can see that looking at these 2 sections of drill core, but these are over 1.5 kilometers apart. Mm-hmm. And it's in the same zone. That's what takes emphasizing here, is just the sheer scale of the thing is really what we need to pay attention to, because these are not shoots of gold mineralization along a structural trend. These are sheets of gold mineralization that are continuous through hundreds of drill holes now, getting close to 300 drill holes along kilometers of strike extent. So again, here's the new drill results that we put out today. You can see that 2 out of the 3 results are substantially better than what's above them on those sections. And you can see what we aim to do here now is drill holes along the trend of this thing, along these kilometers. And what we'd aim to see is having this type of mineralization extend over this whole area. And if you think about that, now that we know it's here on all 3 test holes across 500 meters, each one of these blocks is 1 kilometer in strike extent. I know that's hard to get your head around. It would actually take me, if I was walking along on surface on this zone, here I am up here, it would take me the better part of an hour walking in a straight line to get across this, just due to the size, which is pretty incredible. So we aim to define a drill panel that has very few parallels in Canada in current exploration stories. And that's not different zones of gold mineralization. That's a continuous panel of gold mineralization. So I just wanted to say, what does that look like? what do you have for comparables to big panels of continuous gold mineralization over that kind of scale? Well, this is one of the one. I was reading a great news release that Kirkland put out, I think about 2 weeks ago now. So this is at the Detour Lake mine. They bought it, Kirkland bought it, I think a couple of years ago now. I don't know the exact time. I can't remember off the top of my head, but I think it was about a $4.5 billion purchase that these guys made. And in this, there's, I believe it's 11.8 million ounces in pit. The in-pit reserves, I would imagine. So I'm not saying that we have that kind of ounces. We haven't done a resource study yet. We're still in the early definition drilling phases and expansion drilling phases. But if you can see what they've got here, if you look at the scale, the horizontal and vertical scales are exactly the same between these two things. So you can see here, I think it's at $1,500 gold prices. They had pits designed that went down to about, 700, over 600 meters depth, probably 650 meters depth. And you look at the grade distributions in here, the gray blocks that you see like here don't really have any grade in them. The blue blocks here around those are 0.1 grams to 0.25. And really the only place that this gets into, what we'd call moderate grades is these sort of pinkish areas like here. Maybe you could argue the 3 to 5 gram material, these kind of things. But most of this averages just under 1 gram per ton. Whereas if you look over at the LP fault target at Dixie, you're looking at something that's spatially very similar in extent. We've now drilled it down to about the same depths that you see being drilled there at Detour Lake. But our grades, when you look at the intercepts here, these are over 20 grams per ton. These pink dots, the red ones are 5 to 20 grams per ton. You notice they don't have a plotting category like that at Kirkland here at Detour Lake. And you're looking below that 3 to 5, 1 to 3, and 0.1 to 1. So absolutely just this very large paneled system of high-grade gold. And just to emphasize again, the scale of the target that we're looking at here, far outside of the norm of early stage gold discoveries, I just superimposed with a bit of transparency the overlay of the LP fault on top of the Detour Lake pit. And you can see already with the drilling that we're doing, very comparable extents. How much gold do we have? Well, that's the work that we're doing now with the drilling is designed in order to deliver that kind of maiden resource. And we'll have some more information on the timing of that when we've gotten through some of the discussions we're currently having with the engineers and modelers and others that are working on this information for us. So we should have an update on that timing sometime in the next few weeks.
That's fantastic. So basically, at this point, we are,
Yep.
We are drilling deeper. We are going to be doing some more stuff. Do you want to just kind of re-highlight what we're going to do with that? Because we had updated the drill program, what we're going to do with that $45 million drill program that we've got in place for 2021.
The majority of that drilling is going to be within this multi-kilometer panel, and you're going to see drilling. We're just discussing it in the news release. Initially, we thought we would confine most of the drilling to that upper 400 meters along the LP fault, but now you can see that we're going to be drilling down to 800 meter type depths along several kilometers of strike length. So that may not all be contained in the initial resources, but certainly it'll show you the extent of the system. And it's going to be a very exciting year to see what happens when we drill along some of the portions of the LP fault where we have very nice high grades near surface. Like these initial results that we came out with today, they're in the very least mineralized portion of the system. If you go along the near surface, that gap zone is where you see the least amount of gold. So now we're going to drill some of these deeper holes below some of the areas where we see the best concentrations of gold, and that'll be very exciting to see as well.
Yeah, so really busy year for Great Bear. And if anybody has any questions, we'd be happy to answer them. You can always reach us at info@greatbearresources.ca, or you can always get a hold of us by telephone, 604-646-8354, and we'll do our best to get back to you. We'll keep sending out updates as we go. I know there's going to be a lot of news this year because we are drilling like crazy. So if anybody does have any questions, please reach out. Anything else you want to end with, Chris?
No, I think that's it. Anybody, please give me a shout if you have further questions. And, it's going to be a very busy year with news flow. So there'll be lots of opportunities to touch base and provide further updates.
Fantastic. Thank you so much for your time. And I guess we should get to work on some more drill results and whatnot. So thank you. And we'll talk to you soon.
Thanks, Rita.